Hello and welcome to another match dissection with myself, Sam Davis.
And me, Jeff Hayward.
And, where do we begin, Jeff? Where do we begin? How was your weekend, first and foremost?
Well, not great. I was excited a few weeks ago to actually get tickets for the game yesterday. And then after Tuesday night, I felt alarmed because we did not play well against Crystal Palace. That was a golden opportunity to get back on track. We didn't take it. And 3 days later, we're playing Liverpool, who were flying after a 5-2 victory in the Merseyside derby. So it felt a very difficult fixture for us to get anything from. And so it proved.
Yeah, not helped by our team news, where we're obviously lacking a number of key players at the moment. And during the match, of course, it didn't get any better for us. But let's just quickly talk about that match in the midweek between Liverpool and Everton. And they looked on fire, didn't they?
They looked on fire. They're a fantastic side. They're on the run of their lives. They've had a few iffy performances, particularly away from home this season, and I've copped some flack for talking about that on the Liverpool podcast earlier this week, funnily enough. But, they did struggle against Sheffield United, they struggled against Manchester United, and we needed them to have a similar kind of off day against us. But I think what's been decisive for them recently is that victory over Manchester City, where they won 3-0, and then, obviously winning in midweek 5-2. The players are on fire, and he could even rest players in midweek to bring them back for the game on Saturday, which I think showed, it was going to be an uphill task for us. And particularly off the back of our performance. I mean, let's not talk too much about them. We knew they're going to be tough, but if we go back to Crystal Palace, for the first 20 minutes of that game, we were in that match and we were playing quite well. Callum looked back to his old self. I think he plays well against Sacco. I think he feels he's got the beating of Sacco, and you could see he was running the channels really well. He was pressing him really well, and you felt that Palace had a bit of the ball, but we were looking quite threatening on the counter for those first 20 minutes. The challenge from Sacco that nearly put Smith in hospital, thankfully it didn't, but it got Sacco sent off. Actually, it worked in their favour and worked against us, because they set up in a very compact way, and we did not have the wit or the wherewithal to actually break them down, and that was really worrying. And I think from 1 to 11, including the manager and the assistant manager, we didn't step up to that, realise what a golden opportunity it was. I think we felt, we're playing against 10 men, it'll come, and it never did, and we didn't show any urgency. We showed far too much patience, let's say.
Yeah, agreed. And obviously that challenge on Smith put him out. Therefore, we were all scratching our heads thinking, what's the team selection going to be like against Liverpool? And Frano was included. Were you surprised by that? Because I thought Jack Stacey didn't do himself any harm at Spurs. Yes, I think defensively naive, but certainly showed a lot of potential when attacking. But maybe it was Eddie Howe looking for some leadership and experience in the defence there.
And that was one of the things desperately missing on Tuesday, was the leadership. I was more concerned about Frano coming on in place at right back and swapping Smith for Rico on Tuesday night than actually him starting yesterday. It sort of made more sense yesterday, but to go and try and win the game, the problems that we have in terms of creativity are, I think, obviously centred around that Lerma-Billing axis.
Yeah.
And how that is working with the wingers, Fraser and Danjuma. I think the back four we're in a difficult place, obviously, after yesterday's game, and you could see we were exposed as soon as Ake went off yesterday. But before the team took the pitch yesterday, I thought, well, Frano, he's not playing up against Sadio Mane. His experience will be important, and actually, I've been one of those giving him a lot of flack the last few games. I thought he was one of the better players yesterday. He did a good shift. He got forward a little bit. He connected quite well with Danjuma. But yeah, let's just talk about the positives, right? The first 30 minutes yesterday, there was a bit more discipline, a bit more intensity, and we did have 2 or 3 threatening counter-attacks. Solanke has a shot that gets deflected wide. Fraser looked to be a bit more aggressive going forward, and had a bit more zip about him, and set up a chance that Danjuma squandered. And then I think there were a couple of key moments. There was one where Solanke was played through. I think it was a nice, neat ball from Fraser. And rather than take the shot from outside the box, he tries to nip it inside. The centre half loses the ball, chance goes, and there was another chance where Callum has to play a simple through ball and fails to put enough weight on the pass. Sort of sums up Callum really at the moment. And I think if you look at those incidents, you could see what we were trying to do: be defensively solid, compact, get men behind the ball, let Lovren have the ball and play the long pass because he's not going to hurt us, and put pressure on them when as soon as the ball comes in the middle. I thought Lerma was playing amazingly well in that first 30 minutes. Can I use the word S-house, because he was king of that sort of shit-housing behaviour where getting the fouls, slowing the game down, nipping in to break up their attacks. It was not comfortable for them, and I thought we looked relatively good. And then at 35 minutes, it changed.
Yeah, the sucker punch, wasn't it? Liverpool, I think we dealt fairly well with most of their threats up until that moment, and it was, I think, Mo Salah going through, and Ake, brilliant defending, managed to get across, but as soon as he got up, you saw him in agony. Looks like his hamstring. No idea how long he's going to be out. Early indications say 6 weeks. That in itself was a blow, but almost immediately after, we get caught out by the thing that I said to in an article on the Liverpool FC website when speaking to the Red Men TV on our YouTube channel and also on their YouTube channel. The long ball. They demonstrated that in the week against Everton. One of them was nicely controlled and converted by Origi. Another one, Sadio Mane, couldn't convert, but the danger was there. We saw the danger against Spurs. And look what happens. Long ball from Hendo. Mepham, very naive, good control by the Ox, or did he even control it, or was it just a first time touch? I'm not sure, but ended up 1-0. And from that point, as Joe said in one of the post match interviews on YouTube, at that point it was almost like there was no way back.
It was game over, and there were several things about that goal. One, how many times have we been talking about the long ball this season catching us out? Whether it's Mepham or not just Mepham, but against Spurs, we were terrible against that last time. What was more worrying, I thought, was number one, it was Hendo, no pressure on the ball, and we know he can pass. Okay, it's fine if it's Lovren, but Henderson has a good long pass on him. Don't let him play that pass with so much time. Two, Mepham should be more decisive. He, I think, thinks that Rambo's going to come for that, because look where that ball goes, right into the penalty area. Rambo could have come and collected that, or at least punched it. Didn't. Because Mepham isn't sure whether Rambo's coming or not, he takes his eye off the ball, loses that half yard and lets Oxlade-Chamberlain in. It was a catalogue of poor communication. summed up, I think, by the fact that Ake's no longer there and not being that sort of decisive leader. There's a bit more of unsettled play. And going back to what had happened when Ake goes off, that's when you bring Stacey on and move Frano to the middle.
Yeah, that's what really surprised me. Really surprised to see Jack Simpson come on. But yeah, that made perfect sense to me, to put Stacey on the right-hand side and then have that experience in the middle. Chris Mepham, of course, alongside Jack Simpson. And that core just felt so weak. Why would you not bring someone more experienced in there and put Stacey on the right-hand side? It seemed like a bizarre decision to me, and for the next sort of 10 minutes we were exploited, and lo and behold, before half-time they got a second, and that was through that core of defence as well. And Lerma had a great game, and what we needed was a team of Jefferson Lermas yesterday. However, there were 3 players that got drawn into Mo Salah, and then the run from Keita was just not tracked whatsoever. Great little back heel, and he converted really well, but that was through the core of the defence, and it was scary times. And at that point I was thinking, how many are they going to get in the second half?
Well, there was another change that Liverpool made, where they took Lovren off and they brought Trent Alexander-Arnold on, and Gomez is not the right back that Trent Alexander-Arnold is, and you could see as soon as Alexander-Arnold comes on, that pushes Fraser back, and suddenly that right side, he's getting down there making a number of crosses. There was one soon after the second goal which they should have converted and didn't, and honestly it was the perfect storm. When Gomez is playing right back, we had a chance. As soon as Alexander-Arnold comes on, our attacking threat is completely gone. We're just too worried about stopping him down that flank. And Fraser, who'd been doing okay up until that point, is just can't get forward. So there were a number of things. I think Eddie's not had a great deal of luck, I think, with substitutions this year. There seems to me to be a pattern developing, which is when he picks players to come off the bench at around 60 minutes, suddenly they look like they should have been on from the start. The next week, those players start and they look like they should be on the bench. And the players that come off the bench to replace them, whether it be Fraser, Harry Wilson, Danjuma, they all seem to be. We've got a great team of subs in the attacking side of the game. Defensively, none of it is working. Every time he makes a decision defensively to either bolster the team, it concedes a goal, or to change the shape for whatever reason, it doesn't work. So it's and again yesterday, we're 2-0 down at half time. We're playing 2 defensive midfield players. You've got to get Lewis Cook on at half time. Don't mess about. We've got nothing going forward otherwise, and it's doing my head in that we're set up to play a game like yesterday on the counter, to play almost like to win a 1-0 or to get a 0-0, and then as soon as we concede, there is a plan B that takes just way too long to get implemented.
Yeah, to reuse a phrase that I've put on Twitter a while ago, Philip Billing especially seemed to have the ball retention of a veterinary neuterer. He gave the ball away so much. He was losing balls left, right and centre. He's looking more and more sort of pedestrian every time I see him. There were a few good things he did yesterday, but I especially thought, as you said, that Lewis Cook should have been replacing him, or maybe even Dan Gosling to come on. Just needed something else there in the middle. Liverpool ran us ragged in the end, and I think the possession stats, it was something like 74% to Liverpool, 26 to Bournemouth, but they dominated as we thought, and the third goal was coming, and again it was through one of our defenders making a mistake. That was a ball out from Jack Simpson that got intercepted, and then Keita managed to put through Mo Salah. Again, his pace is astounding, and managed to just tuck it past Ramsdale. It was a great finish, but when you look at that back four at the start of the season, not one of those players would have been picked as like, okay, this is our main back four. Now Rico is probably justified now at left back, but none of the others would usually be starting. And then you're looking in the middle of the pitch as well, thinking, yeah, we are really struggling.
we're really struggling. What I thought yesterday as well, I thought Rico had kind of one of his less good games. I think he's okay when we're doing quite well, but he just seems he was a bit off the pace yesterday, and I think maybe he's played a lot of games and maybe he needs a bit of a break, and it made me think, geez, Lloyd Kelly, where are you? You know, we were all excited about him at the start of the season. We haven't seen him once yet, and he's another one where you think, if we had a first choice back four out, it would be Lloyd Kelly, Nathan Ake, Steve Cook and Adam Smith.
Yeah.
And we're missing all four of them for the next 4 to 6 weeks. So, Liverpool turned it into a training game, and it was dull beyond belief to be there and experience it. We could have left with 20 minutes to go and not missed anything, couldn't we?
Yeah.
So, what was interesting, I think, was we've been talking a lot about playing five in midfield. When Callum goes off injured, similar injury, potentially a hamstring injury, we had the chance to see Solanke up front and a midfield of five. The problem was that was the wrong time in the game. You need to start with that system to try and frustrate Liverpool. And at 2-0, they just passed the ball along their back four all the time with no pressure, no threat. We actually did press them a little bit in the start of the second half, which was quite pleasing. We did get a goal, albeit it was offside. We were trying. There was effort there, and in a bizarre way, it felt that was a more genuine, authentic performance than Tuesday night had been. But let's draw a line, I think, and move on. Really.
There was a lot of sort of game management by Liverpool, and they didn't go all out at 3-0. And sort of credit to Klopp with the fixtures that they've got, coming up. It was like a training drill, as you say, a game of keep ball, and they weren't particularly intense with their attacking, but we couldn't get out of our own half. It was great to see us have little flashes, like you say, when Rico squared that ball to Danjuma, put it in the back of the net. That was good, but then you could tell that Liverpool was seeing the game out, bringing on Curtis Jones. Shaqiri came on late on, and 3-0 was a scoreline that, would you say, based on how it went, perhaps flattered us a little bit?
Yeah. After Tuesday, I actually revised my overly optimistic prediction to be a much more overly optimistic. If we lose 3-1 and put in a decent shift, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
And we lost 3-0. They could have won 5 or 6. Perhaps should have done. And we had 3 shots on goal in the entire game against their 21. Bit like Manchester City last year at home, really, in many ways. And equally as bleak a feeling afterwards, I'd say.
I think many of us were thinking, okay, we could be rivaling Southampton at this rate in terms of how many goals that we could be shipping. So you look at it and you think 3-0, actually not too bad. But there was still, despite the fact that we did well in a third of the game and showed a few flashes throughout the rest of it, Liverpool were always going to be dominant. They came out 3-0 winners, but there was this horrible feeling. And I think it's possibly not down to the result. It's more to do with the personnel that we've lost, and Nathan Ake is going to be huge, isn't it?
Massive. That's the one that we're all super concerned about. If it is 6 weeks, I mean, we've got some massive games coming up. This is the time for those players to step up and play like they can play. Sorry, Jack Simpson, you're not the man. It's got to be Frano in the middle of the park with Metham. Metham, raise your game, mate. You're an international. Start playing like one. We've got to have Stacey on the right and Rico. That is going to be the back four for arguably the next 4 games.
Here's a question. Here's a question for you that someone's posed on Twitter, because earlier I put out a tweet out asking just for some conversations. I'm going to ask you a number of questions later, and we can have a quick discussion for 5 minutes or so based on some of the tweets. But someone suggested maybe Philip Billing could do a job at centre-back. I don't know whether there's any experience there, but he's got height, he's got strength, he's got power, he's got a little bit of pace when, well, sometimes it doesn't look like he's got pace because he strolls around the pitch a fair amount, but he has got it. Could he potentially be an option?
That has occurred to me too as a potential option. If Eddie's determined to have him in the team, could be centre half, but then that's him with Metham, the experience. I mean, yeah, Eddie's got to dig deep. This is a difficult time. I'm not sure that he's been quite as tested as a manager, and without the players that we've got, it almost forces his hand to do something bolder. What is he going to do in the middle of the field? What is he going to do up front? Josh King may be back, mightn't he, for Saturday?
I really hope he is, and everyone's obviously wanting David Brooks to come back as soon as possible as well. Someone even mentioned on Twitter with regards to the question that we put out, Jake Scrimshaw, who's been banging him in for the youth, but I don't quite think it's time for him. I saw him actually in the Ted McDougall stand having a cup of tea, and I was going to go over and have a sort of quick chat, but I didn't manage to catch up with him. But I think maybe a little bit too inexperienced. I mean, when you look at Jack Simpson, he's got Premier League experience, it is a different level, and he struggles to cope quite often. So I think Scrimshaw's not potentially the answer, especially when there's the option of recalling someone like Sam Surridge, who has got some decent league experience.
Sam Surridge would be the one I'd get back at this moment. But King and Solanke ought to be able to get some goals. King, we know, can score. We're actually missing King on that left-hand side, playing that dynamic, getting the ball, attacking role that he did in the sort of before that Manchester United game. I mean, we've still got so many issues with those wingers as well.
Yeah,
it's not simple. It's not at all easy.
What I really want to see is us play with an extra man in the middle. I want to see us go 4-5-1, play the three in the middle, and I would love Josh King to be on one side, Dan Juma and Fraser, one of them on the other side. Not sure which. I mean, Josh King for Blackburn played a lot on the right hand side, so you could have Fraser on the left, and I thought Fraser was all right yesterday, a little bit better and showed a little bit more intent, created a couple of chances, as you say, for Dan Juma, and I'd quite like to see Solanke up front on his own. He showed yesterday that there is something in him, but it's that final ball, the final pass, his inability to get shot away in time. He's got pace. The way he went onto a through ball from Fraser, managed to turn Lovren inside out and get that deflected shot on goal was quite good. The only problem with him is just the way he thinks sometimes. For instance, there was a moment in the first half where we managed to win the ball back, and Fraser played the ball to Rico, and we know the ball that Rico is going to play, especially when he's under pressure from Mo Salah. It's that high ball curled down the channel, and at the point where Fraser played it back to Rico, Solanke should have been starting to make that run. But he didn't. He only did it as soon as Rico kicked it, and lo and behold, it was either Lovren or Van Dijk that won the ball back and cut it out. So it's just he just needs to be a little bit more switched on, and he's seen us enough to know the way we play. But I'm not one of these naysayers about him, because I do think there is potential, and I would like to see him have the responsibility of being the lone striker and just seeing what he can do, because we've all wanted Callum Wilson to maybe have a break for a while. Perhaps not in these circumstances, but now it's time for him to step up, and maybe we'll see the player that we paid X amount of money for. What was it, 20 million?
Yeah. What is going to be the team he plays against Chelsea? Maybe we'll come on to that in a minute. But I actually feel we do have a number of options. Critically, you've got to have somebody sticking the ball in the back of the net. Josh King has to play centre forward. I'm sorry, Solanke's had a run of games. He looks short on confidence. Even if the ball's presented to him 2 yards out with only the keeper to beat, I wouldn't put money on him shooting. I'd put money on him trying to pass and find someone else. That's the sort of mindset he's in at the moment.
Yeah.
And I think if you're going to play with someone who's going to get you a goal, it's got to be Josh up front through the middle. Then I think it becomes a bigger discussion about who are the right people to play behind, supporting. I thought Gosling looked pretty good when he came on yesterday, injected a bit of instant, first time passing, which was good.
He's got to start for me. He's got to start.
Got to start. I think if you play a central midfield of Lerma and Gosling, I mean that was the midfield for much of last season, wasn't it? When we had some in and out results, some good, some terrible. Then I think you've got to play. I think you've still got to start with Fraser. I mean, he did play a bit better yesterday. Fraser, Dan Juma on the other side again. He did a couple of nice touches. Needs perhaps a bit more of a run. Not necessarily sure he's happy on that right hand side, but maybe swap him through the game with Fraser so that they're doing little different times on the opposite flanks. That might be helpful. And then here's my big thing. I've been going on about it for weeks. Play Harry Wilson in behind the striker, because that will give us that extra creativity. Then you can either interchange Lewis Cook with Dan Gosling. I wouldn't mind about either of those two starting actually. But I think you've got to play Harry more as a spare man in behind the striker.
So here's what I would do then. I've just been having a think whilst you've been saying that. This is what I would do, and this is I probably come across like a mad scientist when I'm going through this team. But I would be quite happy to play 3 central defenders, because I think we sort of need it just for more, just for a little bit more solidity. I would put Billing in there, Frano, and probably Mepham. On the left, I'll play Rico. On the right, Ryan Fraser as a wing-back style. And then 3 in the middle. I'd love to have 3 central midfielders in terms of Dan Gosling, Jefferson Lerma and Lewis Cook. And then Harry Wilson just behind Josh King up front if he's fit. If not, Solanke maybe. I would just love to see something different. And it's clear that the formation that we've got at the moment isn't quite working. There's been a question on Twitter, Jeff, that I'm going to just put to you. I know that Eddie Howe said probably not going to be making any signings in January, but you're looking at it now thinking, surely we've got to.
Wow, is that what he said? Because we need cover at centre half, I think. How many good centre halves are out there looking for a job? Not sure. But I would say centre half looks a problem. Depending on when people are coming back, I think it would be great to get somebody right back as a player, and then can we get another striker? I mean, geez, it's compounded by the fact that so many of the players who were bankers for, if you put a shirt on Fraser, put a shirt on Callum, they'll play their heart out, and you're going to get 100% performance, and you know what, they'll create something.
Yeah.
Because we can't guarantee that this season, it's making the whole team selection and speculation about what we do in January much more difficult.
Yeah, it's very interesting reading a number of comments, because obviously there is a lot more scrutiny on many things behind the scenes, including our coaching department, also our fitness regimes, and you just look at the amount of injuries we've had since being in the Premier League. You've seen interviews on AFCB TV where players have said how intense the training is at AFC Bournemouth, and then you think, well, is it taking its toll? Because we seem to get absolutely bombarded with injuries season after season. And, lo and behold, it's our 2, well, I'd say best players, Callum Wilson, not so much this season, but of course Nathan Ake is one of them. Do you think there's an issue behind the scenes with the way that we're maybe, perhaps overtraining the players?
Possibly. I think whenever something like the run of injuries that we've had, and they've all been, well, the recent ones, the 2 yesterday, hamstrings, can go at any time. That's down to the warm-up. It's down to general fitness. But it's one of those. To get one in a game is unlucky. To get two is quite unbelievable, really. Bad luck, training regime. Who can say? I'm sure it's something that the team at the club are looking at and thinking, well, maybe we need to do things differently. One stat that I think's been quite interesting in recent seasons, we were often quoted as the team that ran the most, that put the most yards and kilometres even into matches. I'd be really interested to see those stats now this season, because I think we're coming way short of what we used to do. So what's the reason behind that? Because that energy was a massive strength for us in the previous 4 seasons, but seems to be strangely missing again yesterday. We're taking way too many touches. We're slow. We're a bit dull, frankly.
Yeah, no, we are. It's not good being an AFC Bournemouth fan at the moment, because there is a lot of negativity, but I think there is a danger of over-analysing it a little bit, because there have been some sort of positive, some positive moments. Matt Newcomb on Twitter asked the question, did the switch to a counter-attacking style for the last 2 seasons have a detrimental impact on our overall identity? Therefore, when we lose, we play poorly versus losing but in a positive way. That's another sort of consideration. And it was Minty on Twitter who suggested that maybe our coaching department needs freshening up. Stale and predictable were the words he used. He said, surely as a Premier League club, Bournemouth can attract excellent coaches across the globe who are desperate at applying their trade in the Premier League. It could be argued that he's right, based on the fact that, many of the coaches that we've got do not have Premier League experience.
He's got a fair point. I think in terms of the playing styles, here's how I see it. The counter-attacking side of our game seemed to me to be much more how we played away from home last season. And if you remember the 4-0 victory against Watford, where we absolutely nailed that way of playing last season, and when we played against the bigger clubs, we tended to play with a back 5 and trying again to hit them on the break. But it was always about possession football. If we win the ball in our defensive third, we play it out quickly, but it was crisp, clear, accurate passing that got us up the field really quickly. Like yesterday, when we got the ball, it was more hit and hope. It was the ball down the channel, and that's not the way that we played that counter-attacking last season. It just feels a bit more imprecise this year. I think it's also slightly confusing how we played when we were at home last season. Again, there were games that I remember. You probably remember that first half against Watford last season, and where we fly out of the blocks at teams. And again, forgive us for being repetitive. We talked about this a lot, but we dominated the ball in that first 20 minutes. Caught teams cold. They didn't know what was going on, and it was again down to crisp, accurate passing, fast play, getting the wingers forward, and that real sort of put the energy in the first 20-30 minutes against teams where we felt we were going to get a result. And that would be, I'd put in that block West Ham, Crystal Palace, Watford, Wolves last season, where we felt if we go for them, we'll get a result here. And what is going to be really interesting, again, we're going to talk about the games coming up, but 2 matches after yesterday, we've got Burnley at home, right? They're on a bad run. That is going to be a critical game. To recover where we are, who we are, our identity, and with all the players that we've had coming in, trying to get them to buy into that has not been an easy task. I think perhaps we've overestimated how simple it would be, because they're just not getting it. We've got the wrong players for the system that Eddie wants to play, and he's got to figure it out damn damn quickly.
Yeah, and I mean, I am still backing Eddie to be that man to do it. There have been a number of dissenting voices as well. If you decide to go onto any of the Facebook groups, I would advise getting off them as quick as possible, given that some of the knee-jerk reactions that you've got. But I say knee-jerk. There is some sort of qualification behind their opinion at times, but most of the time it is just very bad-tempered opinion. And I think that Eddie will turn it around and can turn it around, but it doesn't look pretty, the league table at the moment. Now, at the time of recording, Jeff, we're not in a great position, but there are matches this afternoon that could put us down even further. Are you worried at all about the R word, or not just yet?
I think you've got to be concerned. As a Bournemouth fan, let's be honest. Getting 40 points is the first priority for the season, and then we can look forward and enjoy ourselves. And I think anybody who supports us knows that that's where we need to be to relax. We're in a tough place, and there are games that are going on that could make us feel even worse. But when was it? 2 seasons ago we started off and we were clearly bottom of the league after 10 games and the Doomongers were out. We turned it around.
Yeah, true.
We had a disastrous run last season. Roundabout from November till February, we couldn't win a game away from home. In fact, we lost everything away from home. So we've been there. He's been there in difficult places. Ultimately, this squad is stronger than any squad we've ever had. So it's not a shortage of talent. It's a problem with getting the best out of that talent. That's the easier problem to solve, I'd say, than thinking about, we need to buy superstars in the January window. I would argue that perhaps 1 or 2 players might be worth investing in just because of the injury problems that we've got. We have enough quality in the squad to be able to stay up. The question is whether he can get the best out of those players, get the best out of them in the games that we've got coming up, because I'm worried. I understand, and people are angry because we've had 5 games, 4 of them we could have got points out of.
Yeah, that's right. I think that the overall feeling is just not helped, as I said earlier, by the injuries that we've got now. We always knew that we were probably going to lose that, but I think it's just when it actually does happen, and in the manner of the last half an hour at least, where it was basically a training drill for Liverpool, you sort of look at it and think, okay, how are we going to set up against Chelsea? And it's going to be a tough one. But Jeff, once again, thank you very much for your company today.
Thanks. Looking forward to being more optimistic in the future, Sam.
Yes, for sure. And what were your thoughts on the game? We'd love to hear what you've got to say. Pop them in the comments below. And, what do you think we need to do against Chelsea? Let us know. You can put some score predictions if you wish. And is Eddie Howe the man to take us forward? We'll see you in the next video.